welcome back to Beyond the Campfire. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen the Indian, alongside Will the Cowboy, and we're here to talk about ghosts, conspiracy theories, cryptids, all alike. So, if you want to grab your marshmallows, gather around the campfire, this is Beyond the Campfire. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and X at Beyond Campfire or at Beyond Campfire Podcast. So be sure to give us a follow. And yeah, today, Will, what do you have for us?
Well, as you guys know, we used to talk about cults and then we got rid of cults and now we've moved on to talking about curses. So, if you guys do not know, next month on July 4th, it is America's 250th. So, we're going to be talking about a very famous curse over America that has affected many presidents. We're going to try to be cautious about this, not to end up on a watch list. We're not inciting anything when we talk about this. This is just a very interesting sort of curse that has affected America. Now, the curse seems to maybe have been broken. Who knows? Maybe it just went dormant for a little bit, but we will find out today as we talk about the curse of Tippecanoe. Do you have any clue about Tippecanoe, Steve?
I have definitely heard the word and the term, but I actually don't know pretty much anything else about it other than having heard that name. So, this will be new information for me.
Yes. Sorry, I'm pulling my notes real quickly to kind of go over Tippecanoe. It has affected 8 presidents since 1840 when the curse was believed to have started. And I will break down all of those. Now, this will unfortunately be kind of a shorter episode just because, like I said, there's not a lot on this. It is a very interesting topic. We will probably break it down and discuss a little bit more in the last half of this episode. But yeah, so it all began with William Henry Harrison. We love that guy, right? So he was elected president in 1840, but he died in 1841, only like a month after he was sworn in. Now, he was the first victim of the Tippecanoe curse. And in case you don't know who Tippecanoe was, it's not a person, it's a place. But the legend states that during the Tecumseh's War, okay, Shawnee leader Tecumseh and his younger brother Tenskwatawa organized a confederation of Indian tribes because they were like, yo, the Americans, they're coming in our territory and we don't like that. So kind of like, with Geronimo and all these other famous Native American war heroes, they got together as a band and they did not play rock concerts. Instead, they fought against the white man. Boo the white man. I can say that because I'm Irish.
There you go. And I'm the wrong kind of Indian, but here we are.
So anyways, in 1811, there's the Battle of Tippecanoe. William Henry Harrison, defeated Tenskwatawa and his troops and became acting as the governor of the Indian Territory. And thus, Harrison earned the moniker Old Tippecanoe. So it is believed that due to this battle and this fight and him defeating these Indians, that they placed a curse upon the White House. Okay. Where, like I said, it affected 8 presidents.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yes. So, this term and this curse, a lot of people didn't think about it at the time. It did not really become popular until about 1931 and in 1948, when there's a book series, Ripley's Believe It or Not. If you did not know, they have a museum. Believe it or not.
Boo. No, I'm just kidding.
They noted that there's a pattern of presidents dying at certain points, and they coined the term Curse of Tippecanoe. So the reason why we have it, for what I say, the battle was in 1811, like for almost 100 years, no one really was like, hey, our presidents are dying because of a curse. No one really thought about it. But then Ripley's Believe It or Not, the museum, who was actually a famous book before then, was like, all these people are dying really coincidentally. It's very strange. Maybe there's a curse. So Um, now, strange as it seems, that's the name of a cartoon who is done by John Hicks. Prior to the election of 1940, he titled this cartoon Curse of the White House. And he claims in his little cartoon, in the last 100 years, every U.S. president elected at 20-year intervals has died in office.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up now, and I'm seeing the pattern, and this is just really weird pattern.
Yes. So this is where, like I said, the Indians cursed William Henry. No one really made that connection just yet. No account really went into that legend. Like I said, you had the Ripley's Believe It come out. You had the cartoon talking about it, but the first written account, which told the story of how the curse came about, was an article by Lloyd Shearer in 1980 in the Parade magazine. And according to his article, he claimed that when Tecumseh was killed in a later battle, Tenskwatawa set a curse against Harrison. So, he's kind of like, you killed my brother. I curse you. And every other person that sits in that chair, I curse them. But we didn't know that until 1980. So, it's I really like this curse because it's not like, no account comes out. I mean, like I said, this was almost over 170 years after the battle. Did we finally find out that this is why these presidents were possibly dying?
Yeah, I mean, hey, you know, Native Americans were definitely had their different folk religions and beliefs, and again, you and me both believe that the spiritual real is real. So, like, who's not to say that they were actually interacting with spiritual forces that were having effect on our nation's presidents? You know.
Yes. So, going back into the 1980s, that's like I said, it kind of became a little bit popularized because of that article. Now, when he was running for re-election in 1980, Jimmy Carter was asked about the curse when he was in Dayton, Ohio, on October 2nd. And a high school student asked him if he was concerned about predictions that every 20 years or election years ending in zero, the president dies in office. Carter is reported as replying, I've seen those predictions. I'm not afraid. If I knew it was going to happen, I would go ahead and be president and do the best I could to the last day I could. And as we know, he became the worst president ever. And he lived to be 100.
It's just one of those things, right?
Now, did he win the second term? No, because he was terrible. But the before I get into all the victims and how they all died, since John F. Kennedy was killed in 1963, no president has died in office since then. There have been attempts, such as Ronald Reagan when he was shot and wounded 2 months after his 1981 inauguration. Shortly after Reagan was shot, a columnist named Jack Anderson wrote Reagan and the Eerie Zero Factor in the Daily Intelligencer. And he asserted that the 40th president either had disproved the superstition or he had 9 lives. So we hear about this curse. All these presidents are dying up until John F. Kennedy. And then after that, no other president has died. And then Reagan comes into power. We know he was shot at and survived. And this columnist is like, either the curse is not real or, Reagan just has 9 lives. Or, if you're a government conspiracy theorist, then we know that Reagan has a clone. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say, I know he had that assassination attempt which he survived. I wonder if that caused the curse to break, maybe.
Wait, what did you say? Break the curse?
Well, so he did get shot at, and so like maybe he was supposed to die, but then because he survived, like the curse broke after that or something.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Because Bush and Biden are still here, which I don't know. I'll let you explain that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I got a little bit more about Reagan, And then after the Reagan, I got Bush and Biden. And then I got one last little bit. And then I will talk about all the presidents that did succumb to the curse, because it is kind of eerie when you look into it. So, being the oldest man ever to be elected president at that time, he survived surgery in 1985. First Lady Nancy Reagan apparently hired psychics and astrologers to try to protect her husband from the effects of the curse, which maybe that had something to do with it. Who knows? Reagan left office in 1989 and ultimately died from natural causes in 2004. And he survived his presidency by 15 years. So, could Reagan have survived the curse because his wife was hiring psychics and astrologers? Maybe. Was the curse real? Maybe. Because the next guy on our list that survived the curse was George W. Bush. He also survived 2 terms in office. In 2005, there's a grenade thrown at him, but it failed to explode. And he left office in 2009 and he's still alive. Joe Biden, who was elected in 2020, served 1 term, and his presidency ended without incident, which caused some doubt on the curse. And he's, of course, still alive. Now, out of the 8 presidents who did die in office, possibly because of this curse, there was one who was not elected in a year covered by the curse, and that was Zachary Taylor, who was elected in 1848, but he died in 1850, a year ending in 0. So it's kind of like, could Zachary Taylor be part of the curse? Maybe. It's a stretch. Like Reagan and Bush, many presidents outside the curse have faced assassination attempts or medical problems, but they have not died in office. So, yeah, there's the history of the curse. You know, you've had a couple presidents after Reagan. You know, could Nancy Reagan have unknowingly broken the curse with her astrologers? Could there have been a curse the whole time? Who knows? But it is one of the biggest American legends and one of the biggest American curses you can talk about. I mean, if you hear Tippecanoe, you're going to think about the curse. You know? So, any thoughts or comments before I go into all the victims of the curse?
Say that one more time.
I said, any thoughts or comments before I go into who was a victim of the curse?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my initial thought is there's been lots of weird patterns throughout history, so you know, I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical, but I'm happy to hear whatever else you might have to say.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mentioned the last 3 presidents who would fall underneath this curse have survived. Like I said, Nancy did bring in astrologers and such. But here are the presidents, the 8 presidents that have supposedly died to the curse of Tippecanoe and died in office. So, of course, we have the first one. He was elected in 1840, William Henry Harrison. Okay. He was at the Battle of Tippecanoe, got the nickname, you know, Old Tippecanoe, and it's possibly the one that was first cursed. And he, of course, died on April 4th, 1841. And he was only in his first term when he died. And he died of typhoid fever. After.
Yeah, so that's.
Yeah. So the theory is that it's every 20 years. So the next president would be elected in 1860. That was Abraham Lincoln. We
know what happened to him.
Yeah, we have an episode about whether or not his killer did survive or not. If you guys want to go check that out, this is from about 2 years ago. But he died April 15th, 1865 in his second term, and he was assassinated. 20 years later, in 1880, we have James A. Garfield, who died September 19th, 1881. He was in his first term. He was assassinated. Then travel 20 years in the future. We got in the 1900s. He was in his second election when he was elected, and his second term was elected in 1900. So that's why he kind of got cursed. Was William McKinley, who was assassinated on September 14th, 1901. Jump ahead 20 years. We got Warren G. Harding, who was elected in 1920 with his first term, and he had a heart attack on August 2nd, 1923, died in office. Jump ahead 20 years later. We've got in his third term is Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was elected in 1940 and he died April 12th, 1945. And he had a cerebral hemorrhage while he was in his fourth term. And then the last one to fall victim to the curse was, of course, in 1960, 20 years after 1940, with John F. Kennedy, who died November 22nd, 1963. And of course, he was assassinated. And then, after that, we have Ronald Reagan, Bush, and Joe Biden. But that's it. We don't, I mean, those were like I said, Robert or John F. Kennedy was like the last person to be cursed, So that's the Tippecanoe curse.
Yeah, it just is a crazy pattern, the every 20 years thing. And again, seemingly ended with Reagan because obviously Bush and Biden finished their terms and they're still kicking it. So,
Well, like I said, it is weird that for 8 presidencies every 20 years, one was kind of dropping dead. Where there was an assassination attempt. I mean, some of them were not all assassination attempts. Like one was typhoid fever, one was a heart attack. FDR had cerebral hemorrhaging. So it's not like, you can kind of take out the question of, oh, what does somebody, these assassins look at it and go, ooh, of course, a Tippecanoe, this would be really funny to do it on the, 20 years. I don't think that's the case because that just doesn't make sense. So I don't know. When we look at Nancy Reagan, like I said, Nancy Reagan brought in psychics and astrologers because she wanted to save her husband because around that time, you had, like I said, the Ripley's thing was out already for 40 years at that point, telling about the curse. You already had a cartoon out for 40 years talking about, presidents dying. And then you have this article being written in 1980 to where it's like, yo, like Tippecanoe cursed, Henry, what was his name? William Henry Harrison, and it's like, could it actually be a curse? And then Nancy being afraid of that, could she have broken the curse? Who knows?
that is really interesting. Yeah. I mean, if it was her that did the work to get it, broken, obviously it not only saved her husband, but, saves the next several presidents as well, right? Like, Bush got a benefit from that, Biden got a benefit from that, and, whoever's elected in 2040, again, presumably they're going to be protected.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll be protected,
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so.
And it definitely is, like I said, a little bit strange. I think there's a lot of coincidences. And I think that's where, like you said, you're a skeptic. You would sit here and look at it and be like, well, because no one else has died, maybe it was just a coincidence. But then when you hear about, like I said, Nancy over here getting witches up in here to cast some spells and stuff, could the curse have been broken?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
again, like if that's something that did happen, then I'll eat my words and say, yeah, I'm just wrong, right? Because I mean, at least for me, there's been like weird patterns of like the price of ice cream was like correlated with the number of pirates in the world for like several decades. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just like, were the number of pirates in the world affecting the price of ice cream? It's like probably not, right? And so it's just like this guy might have made this curse, and it might have just been like all these presidents were dying, not necessarily because of the curse, but just because it just was a random coincidence. But that Nancy Reagan story, like maybe right, maybe something weird was going on, and
Yeah.
Nancy Reagan was the one that was able to get it broken finally. So
Who knows? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. And what are we in 2026? So we got what, 14 years?
yeah. So
You know?
I'll see whatever poor souls elected in 2040, what happens to them. But
Yeah, we definitely need to get a psychic up in there or a witch or something to come up in there and cast some spells. Maybe us having an American Pope is going to help us.
yeah, he'll odds are he'll still probably be Pope in 2040. So
Yeah, maybe that'll be what helps. Maybe to break the curse is that American influence needs to spread everywhere. And the one place we have not gotten to yet was the Vatican. And now communion is chili cheese dogs. And I don't know what else they eat up there in
whatever remains
Chicago.
are still left, they're all gone now.
Yeah.
They're all like, "Yep, we're not watching this no more." So,
Yeah. Well, that's all I got. Tippecanoe curse is it real? Is it not? Who knows? Anything else, Steve, or are you good?
I think that'll be it. So yeah, probably one of our shortest episodes ever. Is this our shortest episode ever, or what?
No,
Not our
I
shortest,
don't know what our shortest episode is.
but it's not
I
this
have
one.
to look. No,
No,
I
so
think we had one that was like 15 minutes.
gotcha.
Like I said, guys, this was just gonna be kind of like a quick, short episode because it's like I said, there's not a whole lot, you know. It's a little like the curse didn't really happen until later. No one really, kind of came with the idea, but it's an interesting story, I think, to celebrate America's 250. That's for sure. So, thank you guys again for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you guys follow us on Twitter and X at Beyond Campfire. And what the founding fathers thought was the right action might have been what cursed their future nation.